Okay, hello everybody. Thank you for joining us with another one of our Talk With series. And it's my pleasure to be able to talk with Patrizio Tresoldi. He's in Rome, so I love the international feeling here of working with the scientists out of the USA, and there are a lot of them in this field. He's going to be talking about out-of-body experiences induced by hypnotic suggestions. So we talk a lot about the connection between the psi and hypnotic suggestions, and here we have a direct presentation on that. Now, Patrizio, has just been doing a lot of work in this general area of consciousness. And he's got a focus on this theoretical, at the theoretical level, quantum non-local characteristics of human mind, physical correlates of mental interactions at a distance. And here is a link, which I actually want to show it to you because there are lots of papers, and here the focus is on experimental papers showing the amount of science that has actually already been done on this, and it's something which you may have occasion to point people to. Let me put it in the chat box, so that'll give you the ability to get to that page. So everybody should now have that in their chat box. In applied area, he's done work with mental interaction at distance, anticipation of random events, augmented cognition, non-ordinary states of consciousness, comparing mystical and out-of-body experiences. He endorses the call for open, informed study of all aspects of consciousness, which all of us, I know, agree with. And he does a lot of work in statistics, strategies to implement the recommendations for the applications of the alternatives to the null hypothesis, going kind of to the next level down in statistical testing. Okay, so with that, let's let Patrizio take over. Okay, so I did the stop share, and you should be able to get your screen now. Okay, I'm not seeing your screen full yet. Let's see. Are you looking for your share screen? So I think that's. So your movie. Are you in your inbox? Am I seeing your screen but not full, Patrizio?
Okay, can you see?
No. No. So we haven't quite done it yet. Full screen.
Let me see.
Did you do share screen? Ah,
now?
There we go. Now it's coming. Yep, there you go. So I see your PowerPoint. There we go. It's all yours, full screen.
Okay. May I start?
Yes, please do.
Good morning to everybody. Good day, good afternoon and good evening, depending on your time zone. We are in the Rome time zone, but I'm living close to Padova. That is my university. Is located in northeast of Italy. All of you are invited to visit Italy and travel along Padova and Venice, because it's not very far from Padova. Okay, the topic of today's talk is something quite new, because we devised this kind of a strange name, hypnove. Is an acronym for defining the possibility to induce out-of-body experiences by hypnotic suggestion. So it is a mix of hypnosis and a particular state of consciousness that is the out-of-body. Only this is not my only contribution. The leading participant, no, actor and protagonist of this line of research is my colleague Luciano Pederzoli, who is living in Florence. He's the director of the Evan Lab. You see the logo on the top, and he's the hypnotist, the main hypnotist who started this line of research, and there are almost 5 years that we are studying this kind of experiences. So we have now accumulated a good deal of information that might be useful for others interested in this kind of research. So we hope that others at the end of this presentation will find our interesting, be replicated in other countries, in other labs. Okay, the main contents of this presentation is that it is possible. It's something we can say for sure, that it is possible to induce voluntary OBS by using hypnotic suggestions. And in the following, underline the term voluntary. That is the main characteristics of this kind of approach. And in fact, with respect to the spontaneous OBS that are not very uncommon in the normal population, not only in the pathological, psychological conditions, the voluntary out-of-body experience offer greater opportunities to investigate the phenomenological and neurophysiological characteristics. And in the follow, I will show what we have found in these 5 years, more or less. Okay, an important definition is that there are different, say, altered body experiences that are not out-of-body, real out-of-body experience. For example, on the left, there are some vignettes related to autoscopic hallucination and heautoscopy hallucination. Something may appear even in the normal population, not frequently, fortunately, but in some psychopathological condition. And these are not out-of-body experience, simply because the center for consciousness is always in the physical body, and the participant, the subjects, see a sort of virtual body outside their physical, but they inner, their true consciousness is the physical. The true body is very different, because in this case, the center of consciousness is located outside the physical body. This is the very characteristic of this experience with respect to other body hallucination. In fact, on your right, there is a possibility to add the perception of where your body is, simply by using virtual reality. and you have the sensations that your body is not very easy really, but is moved in some way in another place of the room, or even on the top of the room, etc., etc. But the center of consciousness is always remain inside the real body. And as I say, the real out-body experience is when you feel that you are conscious, usually with the state of consciousness is more bright and clear than the consciousness that probably you have now. And but you see that you are not in your body. This is the principal, the main characteristics of this experience. And it's true that as sometimes this experience is a consequence of very serious traumatic condition. For example, here there is a paper by Penny Sartori and others. We are experts in NDA, and probably most of you know that in a great percentage of NDA experience, people refer to experience an out-body condition, but these are consequences of a very serious physical trauma, sometimes neurological trauma, but also cardio arrest, other not pleasurable condition. And on your right, there is another paper that describes other similar out-body experience, but as a consequence of serious psychopathological conditions. So, but what is important to underline is that these traumatic pathological conditions are not necessary for experiencing a real, true out-body experience. In fact, in this book edited by Edzard Kardeniak, that probably you know, Varieties of Anomalous Experience, there is a description of different anomalous experiences, included out-of-body experiences, but even describing the incidence in the normal population. As you probably know, there is a great market about the possibility to have an out-of-body experience that is considered a sort of way for experiences, an enlargement of consciousness, beautiful, mystical, spiritual experiences, etc., etc. And here there are some. I simply collect some market offer about the training. Usually that costs some, not free, for be able to experience an out-body experience. Okay, here on the contrary, this is a good entry for the Psi encyclopedia that I recommend to all of you for having about this. This is edited by I don't remember the name, but related to Alvarado, sorry, Carlos Alvarado. It is an expert in this kind of literature, and here you can read a summary of all these related to this specific experience. Here I simply extract some excerpt for spontaneous OB, and I don't know if among the attenders of this talk there are people that can say that even they experience such a kind of experience, not frequently, but at least 1 or 2 times in their life. For example, this guy describes when this experience happened, when we were about to fall asleep, but we are still awake. I seemed to get out of my body and lift myself up to the ceiling of the room, and felt indescribable happiness, enormous freedom of movement, and extreme lucidity of thoughts. For example, the only things I felt was joy, and my thought was very fast. Another excerpt is, I remember hearing and trembling and then a paralysis of my body, and I found myself outside. I got scared. This is interesting because once I got, even a colleague of mine, we got this kind of experience. And if you are not prepared for this kind of experience, usually the emotion are not very pleasant, because you don't realize if you are going in a psychopathological state, or even more, or another dangerous situation, physical situation. And but if you overcome this scare, this fear, usually you are the emotion are always positive, and the experience is in most of the cases, in 90% of 95% of cases, it's very positive, and you really can experience enhanced states of consciousness. But the only problem with this spontaneous experience is you don't know when it will appear. And then from a scientific point of view, it's difficult to study this kind of spontaneous experience, because you don't know when to say capture the situation, then interview the participants about what they are experiences. And then the innovation of our approach is try to see if it's possible to induce voluntary out-of-body experience, and try to have a direct control of the participant experience in order to obtain direct online information about what they are experiencing. In fact, I try to depict this kind of picture where there is an hypnotist, this is my colleague Luciano, and the consciousness of the person that has been induced in out-of-body experience. And here there is a link that connected the two minds. One mind, the mind of the hypnotist inside the physical body, but the other mind is outside the physical body. It's a sort of night in the consciousness of the out of body experiencer is connected by the mind of the hypnotist. In this case, I underline it's possible to I have direct online information about what is happening. In the literature, there are very few old attempts to pursue this kind of research. In fact, we have discovered on a couple or three all the studies, one by Palmer and Vasari in 1984, but it was not a real hypnotically induced out body. In fact, they use a progressive muscular relaxation and audiovisual stimulation, but they didn't find, didn't report much phenomenological and elements related to this kind of experience. But they try a sort of extrasensory perception tasks, but they didn't find nothing of very interesting. And another study, a study by Tart in 1988, used an hypnosis for inducing an out-of-body experience, and by using very selected participants with a high degree of hypnosis susceptibility. And even in this report, in this study, the author that didn't report many information about his finding. So here we are. Here is our experience, and here there are some examples of hypnotic suggestions to achieve an LDA. We see that they are not very special. What is very special is the motivation of the participants that, of course, must be highly hypnotizable, or must have a high degree of level of hypnotizability, but mainly they must be, say, courageous, very curious, and to experience such a spatial states of consciousness. And you can imagine that the relationship with the hypnotist must be very strong. So, for example, here there are, apart of the classical suggestion to join to achieve a good relaxation status, a good deep state of, say, consciousness. The suggestion for moving the consciousness outside the body are not very sophisticated. For example, now you go gently from the body without haste, gradually, until you are completely out of your body. You will not feel any trouble. In fact, just out, you will be much better. In fact, one of the main tasks of the hypnotist is to guarantee the participant that you are, say, you will lost. You will not leave forever your body, and you will be followed and guided continuously by the hypnotist. Let me see another type of suggestion. Now leave slowly your body and try to see it from the ceiling of this room. Move around wherever you like, going through walls, etc., etc. And you can see there is nothing very special. But following our experience, we realize that what's more important is to help the participant to stay comfortable in this kind of consciousness. And my colleague Luciano has prepared a sort of guide for our induction. Here there is the link for all those of you who are interested in replicating these kind of experiences. And for example, it's important to familiarize the participant to have a voice control, because we know we want to interview the participant when he experiences this particular state of consciousness. And for example, one naive idea was if you speak during the opposite, there is the danger, the risk to return back in your body, your physical body. This is probably true, but it's possible to train the participant to gain the control for their voice and remain in the OBA. Another aspect of the training is to learn to move with intention, because you must say adapt to a situation where there is no body, there is no arms, there is no feet, legs, and there is no eyes in a certain sense. There is no sense organs, and so you have to perceive and move, for example, to solid objects and in a timeless dimension. It is another important aspect that is important to take into account, because in the OBA there is no time, and then participant must be in different, according to our time frame, in different, in the past, in the future, in the whichever time here. And so it's important to guide the participant to stay in the time reality that is similar to the reality that we want to investigate. Otherwise, people in OBA might report finding or information that are not related to the time period that we want to investigate. Okay, another aspect is what I say before, that we cannot expect the people perceive, see, hear, taste by using the normal sense organs, physical senses. And so the type of perceptions is very, very, very essential. And I will say something more after. And the OBA experiencer must practice this very, very say unusual, not normal way of collecting information. Okay, other details are, as I said, in this guide for OB induction, written by Luciano. Okay, the more important, not a small detail, is to learn to re-enter in the physical body that you can imagine, or in order not to be traumatized by these kind of experiences. And as long as these kind of experiences get repeated, they became more easy. In fact, after 2, 3, 4 sessions, people got in this state of experience very quickly, and then they are quite familiar with this kind of consciousness status, and then all the things proceed more easily. Oh, here are some excerpts that we have published in our paper related to how they live, perceive, move in this particular place. And because, I repeat, it's possible to interview online the participant without the risk that they go back to their physical body. And I specify that all our investigation recruit a participant with a good level of hypnotizability, as I said, and participant with a good relationship with the hypnotist, and obviously very, very interested in this kind of experience. For example, we asked how or was their experience moving toward the places suggested by the hypnotist, in order to see if they experienced the movement as when in the physical body, or they move instantaneously to the target. In fact, they report was exactly so. For example, subject A say, I focused immediately. Subject AL, I need to move. First a panoramic view, followed by an examination of things at time. Subject D, a bit like zooming in immediately, etc., etc. And another question was related if they feel something when moving through physical barriers like wall or even cars or trains, and all people think they feel nothing, and apart probably one that okay, subject date is, I felt a barely perceptible vibration. So at maximum they say that they felt something slow or vibration, or like a very faint, like getting to water, or a sense of coolness, subject ACE. Okay, another echo. This is another interesting question related to how they perceive objects, and as I say, that there are no physical eyes, and it's very interesting because they say I could perceive it, the target, simultaneously from all point of view. This is very difficult for us to figure out how they see really, but this a very, very curious and particular way of perceiving this state. I could see it from above as if from the ceiling, and I could see it, the target, any way I wanted, depending on my level of attention to it. If I focus on it, I could see everything simultaneously, otherwise only one side at a time. To summarize, people refer that they can perceive whichever target they want from all point of view, but if they want, intentionally, they can focus on some details. This is very, very, very curious and interesting say, phenomena. Okay. Another question, very interesting, is could you experience the sense of time? Because I anticipated that in this dimension, this state of consciousness, you are in a timeless dimension. In fact, the declaration were that they feel no sense of time. For example, in this study, people were requested to move from Florence to Padova, is 119 kilometers. And they say, I felt, for example, this subject, I felt no sense of time traveling to Padova. I could sense it while moving around the room, and while watching the objects, as if I were in my physical body. The sense that they, in some sort, they experience the, say, a sort of exploration time, but the something is evolving, but in within a timeless dimension. This is very interesting. Okay, we here in this other paper that you can download for free in internet. We were interested on the fact that some people refer that they perceive a sort of non-physical but a sort of subtle body, a body with no physical characteristics around their center of consciousness. And we named this body subtle body, but in the literature there are other description like etheric body or other definition. And but the nice thing is that they this kind of say experience was say observed and experienced directly by participants, and it was very nice to compare how they move. For example, they experience the movement or the time or the perception by using this kind of subtle body or intermediate body between their center of consciousness that we define psychic body, but the term is not important. And then in this secondary body that we named subtle body, like this. This is an interesting question. How is the psychic body connected to the subtle body? One participant say it's a mutual attraction. Another describe they are connected by a type of silver rope. And this silver rope we found was described by some mystic experiencer and other even by other people that get spontaneous experience. The other participants say by a type of cylindrical vortex, a white spinning rope. It's a very interesting description of the connection between these two, the center of consciousness that we name the psychical body, and this sort of a non-physical but semi-physical energetic body. Okay, okay. If you are interested, there are other interesting description of these experiences. Okay, this is another paper that you can find for free, and we try to compare the out-of-body experiences obtained by different causes. For example, by NDA, even traumatic condition, by spontaneous condition, and by our procedure, and there is a great similarity, for example, for the sense of time. Did you feel the sense of time? Do you see that the majority of participants, independently from the reason of the causes of their OBA, report that they didn't feel a sense of time. Okay. And this is very important. Describing the state of consciousness as a greater awareness and positive and with positive emotions. It's very, very, very interesting. Okay, these are our last study, and here we used a more formal questionnaire for investigating their consciousness status. The instrument is the Phenomenology of Consciousness Inventory, devised by Pekala. Is one of the most important expert in hypnosis and in the study of consciousness non state. And you see, compared to where participants were not expert in out-of-body experience. They were simply participants with a sufficient degree of hypnotizability. So they are a little bit different from the previous one. But as you can see, that there are differences in three main dimensions. One is the altered state, altered state subdimension. For example, I felt in extremely different and unusual state of consciousness. I felt it in an extraordinary, non-ordinary state of awareness. People who experience an out-of-body induced by the hypnotic suggestions obtain a higher score with positive affect or emotion. For example,
Patrizio, I'm sorry, Patrizio, can I interrupt you? What, please, and I'm sorry to do so, but I want to understand what the mean on the left hand, is this the number of people that responded this way, or I'm...
No. These are the scores obtained by applying this questionnaire, and these are different dimensions. I didn't.
Right.
For example, VC is voluntary control, rationality, and memory.
Okay, but what is like a memory for 5? What does 5 mean for memory?
Is the mean obtained averaging the scores related to the items related to this dimension.
So 5?
Simply, 5 is the means obtain averaging the scores, because the scores were there are different items related, for example, the altered state, and the people say yes, no, and I don't remember if it's a sort of Likert scale where they gave a score from 0 to 5 according to the questions presented in the questionnaire. The higher is the score, it means that the higher it was the dimension they declare to be experienced. For example, as I said, the dimension related to other state, people who simply imagine to be in Ove score lower with respect to people that were induced in Ove.
I see. Okay.
The same appear for the positive emotion, and the same appears for the altered experience. For example, one question: I felt my body greatly expanded beyond the boundaries of my skin. times to the still. There was no movement of time at all. These are the questions of the questionnaire, and the people score depending on their evaluation. And this is, as I said, a sort of a not free interview. This is a sort of we call structural interview by using this particular questionnaire that is quite known in this field, the phenomenology of consciousness inventory. These last letters simply tell us that simply imagining to be in Obe is not sufficient to experience an altered state, a positive affect, in an altered experience. If you are induced in Obe by hypnotic suggestion, you experience a higher score if you use this kind of instrument. This is probably the part that most of you are interested in, because people may say, okay, we can accept that when inducing out-of-body experience, people feel more joy, more free, they experience a timeless dimension, they can move through walls in whichever place of the universe, etc., etc. But this might be true, but we cannot say and direct their declaration. What will happen if we ask them to perceive or describe something that we can check out independently? It is the classical task of, for example, of extrasensory perception. You can put a target somewhere outside the vision, the possibility to be perceived by normal ways, and then ask the participant in out-of-body state to detect the target, and then we can check if they detect accurately or not. Like a classical telepathic experiment in Gansfeld or clairvoyance experiment. That's the procedure is exactly the same. And this probably the first experiment I did probably it was the first with another hypnotist, Guido Del Prete, and we see that compared to the self-relaxed condition, the percentage of it was close to chance. The chance was 25% because we presented the target with three other non-target, so the guess probability was 1 out of 4, 25%, and we see that compared to the self-relaxed condition, it is within participant, in the sense that all participants first, not first, in balanced way, did 10 trials in hypnagogic state, 10 trials in self-induced relaxed state, and in the hypnagogic condition, with a suggestion to be in Obe, the percentage was 37.5. That is clearly a good percentage on average, and as you can expect, some participants were more clever and other less, but on average, all these participants, I don't remember how many participants, Okay. Well, probably 12 participants contributed. And you can see that in this typical experiment of extrasensory perception of picture, in this case we use picture, they were quite most accurate than in the self-relaxed state. The second experiment with the same hypnotist, we compare a classical extrasensory perception that is probably very similar to classical clairvoyance task, where the participants are requested to relax, to say to make their inner talk silent, to close their eyes, and then to describe what they what the target is placed in a distant room. And in this case, we didn't find, for example, in a session 1, any particular difference between the ESP, we call clairvoyance task, without the inducing out-of-body experience, and the percentage of hits when inducing out-of-body experience. The average was superior to the chance, is 33% against the almost chance in the second session, but this decline in our interpretation was due to the fatigue, because it's very say expensive in mental energy to do this kind of experiment for the participants. And then we ask them to identify, to do 2-3 trials in the same days, and this is not a good recommendation for all of those interested in this kind of experience. Our recommendation is to do a single trial for every day, and then repeat the trial next days, but not all the same days. The third experiment of this related to the identification of images was done recently, in 1914. And in this case, the target was placed very far from their place. Participants were in Florence, and the target was placed face up and face down, because we was also interesting to see if there were some differences when the images was say visible from the ceiling, or were say masked because face down. But as you can imagine, this kind of difference doesn't matter, because you don't use the eyes. You can target in how they are placed from the vision point of view. And as you can see, these are 5 selected participants. For example, participant Ace didn't identify any target, but instead participant A3D identified 2 out of 3 its face up, and the same happened for its face down. The nice thing is that we recorded on the tape what they said when they identified, they described the target, and we send their recording two independent judges. LP was Luciano, and this was another colleague. Simply hearing what the participant say during their target identification, they try to identify the target among 4 options. And you can see that they were able to identify, okay, it's not 100%, but well above the chance the target. In summary, not only the participant, but even independent judges were able to identify the targets well above the chance. It is quite promising, say, okay, if you want to expect 100%, we are still far from this level, but what it is enough to be well above the chance level. Okay. Recently, we were also interested in to investigate the neurophysiological correlates, because you know that in mainstream science people are raise their ears when they say, there is something related to the neurophysiological aspect of these such strange states of consciousness. But up to today, we didn't find any specific correlates, neurological correlates of related to this kind of experience. So this okay, it is still an open the same open question to see if we can identify specific neurophysiological correlates when people are in a real out-of-body experience. It is the end of my presentation. The take-home messages are that it's clearly possible to induce voluntary out-of-body experience by using hypnotic suggestions. And as I try to convince you, there are this is a great opportunity for having online information about what they are experiencing, and in particular if they can guide to perceive a specific target around the world. And as you already have understood, is that it's not possible to apply this kind of procedure to whichever people you can enroll, but it's important to have a good hypnotist, very committed to this kind of line of research. In particular, you must select a participant with obviously a good degree of hypnotizability, but we underline the importance of to be very, very committed to have this kind of experience that, as I said before, is less traumatic than voluntary out-of-body experience, because you are always guided by a person that take you connected with the normal reality, and so you must be more say quiet, quiet, and so that you will not lost your physical body and you get lost in the universe. Okay, this is all for. So
Patrizio, thank you so much.
Right,
and let's open it up for questions. You guys can turn on your mic or put questions in the chat box.
I saw that you are in program a talk with Julia Seller, the 9th April, that I suppose she will describe her or other voluntary, non-voluntary, spontaneous out-of-body experience. So I think it will be very interesting to compare um, what we have found by using this kind of techniques with the spontaneous or other way to experience out-of-body experience. So I'm very curious to compare what Julia will say
Okay.
in the future.
She's on in 2 weeks. I don't know if you're in our group. I'll try to remember to send you the link so you can hear her talk. Okay. And if I don't do that in like a week and a half, remind me. I'm making myself a note. So I'll send you the link.
Thank you.
Because yes, I'd like you to not only hear it, but then you two can chat a little bit about it. Okay, other questions, comments here? Okay, well, I have one, but obviously I'd like, other people to ask questions as well. You talked about time and how time is so different there, and you do have specific targets. Have you ever asked the person to move in time in their life to look at a picture, say, in the future?
We have done, we are continuing to investigate how to manage this timeless dimension in order to see what is possible to obtain by participants in this kind of experience. At present, we didn't try to ask people information about future in our dimension. For example, let me describe what will happen in that place in the next month, for example.
Right.
Okay. We are trying, but at present we don't have. I think that it's absolutely possible, and it's not say it's included this kind of possibility.
Do you think it's impossible or possible?
Possible, absolutely,
Oh, yeah.
absolutely, because
exactly.
We have clear that in that state of consciousness there is no time. So we call past future related to our dimension, our time frame, but in that dimension there is a single time, a closed time, or frozen time, or best to say timeless dimension.
Okay.
So
our work in associative remote viewing, where the task is for the viewer to describe and sketch a photo site, like going to a site at a specific time from a photo, that he will or she will definitely see in the future. I really wonder if you were to get your best hypnotic and participant team, choose the best one. This is what we're now calling precog pros. If you could actually do precognition with that pair. And we're all, if you can find a pair that are interested, I'd be happy to show them how to do it online with our system. And we could get some statistics on OBEARV, which would be really interesting.
I think it's absolutely possible because Luciano is hearing me now. I know different people that may be interested in this kind of study, and then I think that if we devise a condition for testing this future remote viewing in the OBA, I think it's absolutely possible to do this kind of investigation. Absolutely.
If you can find people who are interested, obviously give me an email We'll Zoom all together, and it will not be difficult to set up because we have an online approach that people are using right now. The only difference would be the remote viewing session. Who knows about the feedback, but the remote viewing session would be done using your approach here. So
Absolutely.
that would be so interesting. Okay, then I'll wait. Hopefully you'll contact me and we'll pick that up. I'd be happy to do that with you.
If
That'd
we
be
can say something about the targets, we are convinced that the targets must be very interesting for the participants. We used in the past classical pictures as was used very often in the telepathy or clairvoyance experience, but we found that the participants are, say, more motivated to describe real targets, for example, places, monuments, something that even in that particular state of consciousness might be interesting, because we cannot forget that people in that state of consciousness are normal people, and
right.
then they probably find much more interesting to identify people, environments, place, squares, etc., than simply pictures, even if the pictures might be emotional driven, but we have some clues that they are more, say, clever, more able to describe what they are seeing, perceiving, if there is something more concrete, more real, than simply is our.
We see that too. We see our viewers go off to different places. You know, you had 4 options, sounded like your standard. We do 2, binary. So it takes more trials, but that's why we say we think binary is easier to choose them, so they're very different. But we do start with pictures, but we call them photo sites. The idea is for the person to go to the physical site at the
Exactly.
time the photo was taken and describe with all their senses what is in that target, the one they're going to see the following few days. Anyway, let me know if you can find people that are interested in doing this, you know, say that are willing to commit to at least 10, but maybe even up more trials, then we can get some meaningful statistics. We like to go actually 25. We get
Okay.
good statistics. So
I check with Luciano on this possibility.
yeah, okay, that'll be good. Yeah, in fact, I can see Luciano's here. Other people jump in. Other questions, comments? I know a lot of people in our group, in fact, have experienced OBEs. The connection with the hypnosis, so the hypnosis definitely seemed to help. Also, it makes it directed. Well, let me see. We move. Yeah, this moving in time, how you would do that hypnotically is sort of interesting. We use concepts of like an anchor or a beacon to get a person to the right place and time. You know, give them something now, and then the next you're going to be holding this tomorrow. I don't know what your guys do, but it'd be really interesting to see, because
No, for example, Luciano suggested to look at a calendar and and describe the day and the year, and if they identify in a day or a year that's not the actual what we wish, they are invited to move in 2018 and not in 1945 or other
right.
years. So there are
So
some
you've done that.
tricks for helping them to stay in a time dimension that's compatible with our time. It's very interesting because it's difficult for us in this kind of dimension to imagine how we can move, live, and experience in a timeless. We can figure out unless we had this kind repeatedly this kind of experience. But in my case, I didn't experience this kind of experience, so it's quite interesting to try to say, imagine how to live this kind of dimension.
Yeah, if you're thinking about it too much, it's going to be harder. But do they do sketches or is it all verbal? I mean, the judges, I love that you had independent judges judge.
In general, up to date, we use simply verbal description. But
What kind of system? Wait, I just didn't hear it. Say it again.
We use only verbal descriptions.
Verbal, okay.
We recorded what they say, describe about the target, and then we use this information for the identification of the real.
And then you compared.
Yes.
We find sketches, words are good, but sketches are good too, and you might have them do that.
I don't know. We didn't try if they can sketch when they are still in the OBA.
Right, while they're doing or when they come back.
I think that theoretically it's possible, but we didn't check this possibility.
Right. How?
I was surprised that they can say speak without losing their say out-of-body experience, but the expert in hypnosis say that it's normal in a hypnotic state. You cannot lose your hypnotic status if you speak, if you are interviewed. And the same happened. It was not granted in out-body experience. Okay, we need training, of course.
Yeah, that's very interesting that you can talk. The sketching and stuff, the people who do the dream work, which is similar, when they wake up, then they do their sketching and writing the words. Anyway, that's interesting. The experiment we're talking about, because you won't know the outcome until the future. What's the time frame difference when you did it? They were doing their OBE. They were giving a verbal description. Did the judging happen right then? Did the judging happen the next day?
Usually, even after some days, but they had the possibility to listen to their verbal description.
Right.
So they they used their memory, but they were helped by their description. They were recorded in a tape. So I think it's better to ask them immediately, because I suspect, so my guess is that they can lose memory of their experience. So the closer is the identification, the better is the chance to remember well what they experienced.
So they did what we would call self-judging. They would have their OBE experience. They would do the transcript. They would do their verbal, and then you would show them the 4 pictures, and they would choose which one they thought they visited.
Exactly.
Okay, that works. They won't get feedback. Did you give them then feedback, and you tell them, "Yep, you were right," or "You were not right"? What did you do about that?
Yes, they at the end it seemed quite obvious. They want to know if they were correct the percentage.
Okay.
Even the participant who didn't identify any hits, it was quite disappointed, but it's the problem is not all are say clever or skilled. Even I'm quite sure that with increased training, they can improve this kind of ability. I think that training is important for them for say exploiting this particular status of consciousness.
Yep, yep, I agree. And we see that. We see some people having their beginner's luck, but they just learn as time goes on. The difference here from what you did, because of the future, is they will not get their feedback. You know, it's okay for them to do their own comparisons. That's good with two, but they won't get the feedback for several days. But they will get feedback for sure. In fact, we're going to ask them, if this experiment goes as I'm envisioning now, you would ask them to move to their feedback session and maybe say a coordinate or something out loud at the remote viewing time, say it out loud at feedback time, maybe bring a special object. You know, there are different things that I'd like you guys to experiment with. You know, you understand this better. But it would be amazing to see if you guys could do better than the standard AR viewers, the standard remote viewers.
I don't know, because I think that a real remote viewer in some way is in a, I would say, OBA-like condition. I don't know.
No, I agree with that.
They're very, very, very different.
Well, it is.
We will see. We will see.
Yeah. Well, that's exactly right. You know,
in particular, I think that we can discover that they describe the target differently. For example, we don't have enough data, but they describe the targets in more realistic way with our procedure. Whereas I read that the usual remote viewing is very difficult to have a complete picture of the target. Usually they identify some physical, emotional aspects and not the whole picture.
Yep, that's true. And I noticed you said, and I've heard others say, that when they do OBE, it's a little bit like lucid dreaming. You do get much more details available. So, hell, and if that was on the correct target, that they see.
It's important to analyze how they describe. I think that there are qualitative details that are different, even if the overall score may be identical. I don't know.
That's right.
There are no big differences between the two procedures, but how they identify the target, I think that from a qualitative point of view, you can discover some difference. It's simply a guess. I don't know.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to find out. You know, maybe they'll be better, maybe they won't, and it depends on the people. That's why I'm suggesting you give the ones who did the best, and let's do the experiment with them. Okay, other questions, comments? Okay, well, this was certainly very interesting. Let's see, I'd love to get a copy of the articles referenced here.
You can disseminate my presentation I sent you yesterday for all people interested. And there are many links in the presentation that direct to the paper or website, so you can use the presentation for going directly to the source of the of the information.
And just do a search on his name. I do have one reference that I found, but in his presentation, there's more. So you'll be able to trace that down too. He's just got so much out there. Okay. Is Luciano, who's here, he was a colleague, or is he the hypnotist?
Yes.
He was the hypnotist?
My right and left hand.
Okay. Right and left hand. Okay, does he want to ask any questions about this potential experiment while we're here, or do you think he understands it?
Oh, we discuss in order to find
Okay, okay.
the good participants and then to see.
Let me see if there are any more questions. OBE targets when remote viewing. I'm only explore this. Okay, so here's Anita, one of the chatting. She says, I sometimes OBE to targets when remote viewing. You know, people are obviously, as we're getting more and more involved in this, they're experimenting with different approaches. But you see, what is so important to me is to have the data, as with you, the data. But to now get data on binary ARV, we can now compare different approaches and things like that. So, okay, very good. One last chance. Any more questions, comments you want to put in the chat box? If not, give you a minute here. Okay. Patrizio, again, thank you so much. This was so interesting.
Okay, see you. I hope we can continue our collaboration, and all the best for all your projects and for this important scientific communication for a cultural, say, change about these aspects of our real nature. This is
That's right.
important message. We are we have this kind of characteristics. The important thing is to be aware of this, and if you want, use
Right.
them. It's best for your knowledge, for your life today.
That's
Okay.
beautiful. Beautiful,
See you.
beautiful summary. And we want it not only for all the people hearing here, we somehow want to spread the word to society, because I think society would be so much better off if they really kind of got, and you use the word spiritual also in there. I mean, we're talking about something which is very important. So
All the
again,
best.
yep,
See
all the
you.
best, and thank you very much. And I'll end this now, and I'll send you the link of the recording of this in case you want to use it.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, bye now.